Hello and welcome back to FiddleUP. Today we are going to talk about vibrato. Woohoo! Is anybody else terrified? I am. So the first thing you need to do is apologize in advance to your family. I'm only half kidding. Vibrato is a wonderful thing. It's a really difficult skill to learn, and we're going to talk about how to go through all of the things you need to do to get there. It's not easy. It's one of those things that takes most people years to master. I'm going to show you all the tricks and show you how to get it up and running quickly. I kind of did vibrato for a really long time when I was learning, when I was a teenager. I kind of learned vibrato, but kind of badly, and had to rehab it at one point, and managed to only rehab it in about, managed to do that only in about a few weeks. But it's one of those things that takes refining and practice, and the beginning of it is a little tedious. So just brace yourself. I'm sure you kind of know what you're in for ahead of time. Most people do. Most people kind of put off learning vibrato for just a little bit because it's kind of like, it's a whole thing. But it doesn't need to be horribly painful if you can boot camp it. I strongly recommend to everybody that you just take 3 to 4 weeks of your life and try to just focus on it real hard for a short amount of time and try to just get through all the rough stuff in the beginning. And then after that, it's just the refining process. Like once you get the basics down, then you can just kind of enjoy the process of refining. So let's talk about what the movement actually is, because the movement is very specific. So what's happening in your left hand is you have your hand up here, and I'll do this without my fiddle for 1 minute because you can see it better. So from here, as if I'm holding my fiddle, I'm just gonna take my hand, the palm of my hand, and move it back just a little bit, just like that. So vibrato is not a forward and back. I'm not coming forward towards my face. The whole thing is about going back, 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 back. And as you can see, your hand is in kind of a funny position. Like my palm is faced towards the back of the room for a start, to be able to put my fingers down. So the whole thing is going sort of like this towards my index finger. So that's the direction that we're going in here. So, and from a straight wrist here, I know I'm kind of exaggerating and it's looking a bit more like what it is. I'm trying not to do that, but it's hard. So you're just going to go back, 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 back. And I think before you even pick up the fiddle, I think the best way to practice this is actually to use a shaker egg. And a lot of people do this. Some people don't like this. I think it's a good thing to do in the very beginning. And I have my very special purple egg because purple's my favorite color. So I'm going to hold the egg as if it's my fiddle in my left hand. So I'm going to put my thumb on one side and my fingers on the other. And I'm just going to do a little shake. And I'm only going back. I'm not coming forward. I'm only going back. Okay, so let's try that. Excuse me. A little pollen in my throat. So we're going to take this a little bit slower and do this as an exercise. We're going to go up from 1 to 4. So we'll start really slow. Let's just start with 1. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So take that as slow as you can and just try to get that little backwards wrist movement, and take that as long as you want to take it. Take your time with step 1. Step 2 will just double the timing of that. So we'll go back, forward, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So stick with that as long as you feel comfortable. If you want to just stay there for a little while. This is something you can do while you're doing something else too, as long as you're kind of watching the movement carefully. If you want to just kind of do it while you're watching TV or something, that's something that some people do. Or I like to do things like this, sitting in front of my fireplace, watching the fire crackle. And so the next thing you're going to do is step 3 is to go in 3s. So we'll take that in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we'll have to take that at a certain amount of speed for that to feel comfortable. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I think I need to practice this too. It's not that easy. It's hard, and it's supposed to be hard. This is why I like the shaker egg, because it works your wrist a little bit in a way that you'll see how helpful this is later. So now let's do 4. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. That's enough for me. So that's a good way to start with this, so you can really isolate that movement. It really helps, I promise. It helped me anyway. So now let's take all of that and figure out how to put it on the fiddle. We got to talk about how to put your finger down to get this going. And so I would highly recommend you take a look at the intonation video. I made a video about tuning your fingers with a tuner, actually playing scales with a tuner, and rocking back and forth on the pad of your finger to get your intonation correct. I would highly recommend going and watching that video before you proceed to this part, because this is one of those things that is going to require a little bit of touch with that. So if you've done those intonation exercises first, then that's really going to help coming into this stage. So the first thing you're going to do is figure out how to put your fingers down. So now your first finger isn't the easiest finger to start with, actually. So we're not going to start with that one. We're actually going to start with your second finger. So we're on your A string. Put your second finger down on a C sharp. This is the easiest finger to start with, and it's going to be the easiest one for you to see here. So I'll show you what's happening. So my second finger is in its upright position, and then what I'm going to do is bring my wrist back. See that? Tiny little movement. So now that you've seen that finger movement, we're going to put the fiddle back down for a second and talk about that movement right there. So to get that movement down, I'm going to give you a little secret here that really, really, really works. I didn't get my vibrato down until I got this part. And this is the fact that your knuckles need to be all loose. So now that you've seen the movement, we're going to go back to that in a minute. But I would highly recommend that you loosen up your knuckles. So on your left hand, it's just these 4 on your left hand that you need to worry about. And so what I like to do, and this takes a lot of flexibility, you have to work up to this, but what you're working up to is to be able to bend your fingers at the second knuckle and then twiddle your fingers. I'm not kidding. So that your first knuckle is really loose. Your first knuckle counting from the tip of your finger. So it's this knuckle right here. So if you bend at the second knuckle and you can just flap the tip of your finger, that first pad of your finger back and forth. If you can do that, that's going to take a little time. That's something you can do again while you're sitting around doing something else, taking a break, watching a soap, whatever. You can sit and loosen up that first knuckle. That was a game changer for me. I really couldn't do it until I got this part. And I got my knuckles really loosened up. And then suddenly my vibrato just worked. And unfortunately, you have to do it on all four fingers. So know that your pinky finger and your ring finger are attached. So they're going to do some things together sometimes. And this is one of those things that they need to do together. So all you want to do is make sure that that first knuckle is really loose. And I know this looks really funny, but that's because it is funny. But really, I promise you, if you work on this before you even get started, it's going to save you so much hassle. So, all right, now that I'm all loose, let's pick the fiddle back up. And let's put the second finger down on your A string, C sharp. And let's try that movement again. This is the part where you apologize to your family because it sounds like an ambulance siren and will for some time. So be aware that you really only want to practice vibrato stuff for a few minutes at a time. I would practice for 5 minutes and then stop, and you can always come back to it 20 minutes later. But I would really stress that, especially in the beginning when you're just working on these tiny little movements, that you don't overdo it. Like, don't spend a whole hour. I mean, you won't be able to do that anyway, but don't even spend 10 or 20 minutes. Like, really try to make sure that you're careful with this, because your fingers will get very, very tired very, very quickly. So now that you've seen that movement on the second finger, let's move to the first finger. Put the first finger down where it goes on a B. And then move your wrist back. So let's go up to the D, third finger on your A string. So do you see how this looks a little bit different on each of my fingers? But it's still all about getting my palm to go back and to pivot on my wrist. So it's not arm vibrato. It's not the whole arm going back and forth. It's not just the finger moving. It's your wrist moving and your finger going with it. So you want to make sure there isn't any tension in your finger. Your finger is depressing the string down, but then kind of going, it's kind of leaning back, kind of like a dancer doing a back bend, It's just kind of gently leaning back. And so let's try that third finger again. And then the hardest finger of all, the fourth finger. This one's rough. So I'm putting that on an E on the A string. And here we go. Let's try that one. So do you remember what I said about how the fourth and third fingers are attached? This is a good idea to put your third finger down and do the movement with your third finger while your fourth finger is going. You don't have to do that forever, but it's a good stabilizing method for just starting out. Okay, so stay there as long as you need to, like get the movement down. And it requires a lot of patience and a lot of patience with that noise. But you will get it. So let's do that same 1, 2, 3, 4 exercise with this scale on the A string with those notes we were just working with. So let's do 1. Second finger. Third finger. Fourth finger. Whew. All right, so you can do that to your heart's content. And then we'll move on to 2. Second finger. Third finger. So you can spend as long as you need to on that. I'm kind of going through this a little bit quickly. You're not going to get through all of this that quickly, but I just want to show you each of the steps. So that's how you practice that, and you can practice that on all of your strings as well. I would highly recommend that. So let's do 3. So that's a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, down, up, or up, down, up, down, up, down. So now let's try 4. Woo! I need to practice all that as well. So you can keep going and make those faster as well. You can slowly build all of that up. And doing it that way with the 1, 2, 3, 4, some people go crazy and do 5, 6, 7, 8, but I don't really think that's necessary. I mean, I didn't find it necessary for me personally to do all that. I just took all of that I did and made it faster. And I think having the 1, the 2, that triplet feel there in the middle, and then the 4 is a good way to cover all the bases in terms of like the versatility that you're going to need for the rhythm of it. So what you're going for with all that is you want to be able to control the speed of the vibrato. And you're doing this because you want to be able to put a different feel of vibrato in different places. There's places when you're going to want to do a slower vibrato, and there's places where you're going to want to do a faster vibrato. And in fiddle music, we actually use vibrato as an ornament. I use one little shake of vibrato, and I say shake because that's what it's called, not just because I was using the shaker egg. I will throw one little shake of vibrato into a reel or a jig to get that note to pop out. And I'll show you what that sounds like. So did you see me put those little shakes in, and it just kind of goes bum, you know, just gives it a little something. And so that's another way that you can use vibrato as ornamentation. And that's generally how we use it in fiddle music, except for on slow airs and, slow tunes, of course, where you're going to use vibrato as it's traditionally used. So that's kind of a medium speed. If I was going to do that slower. So that's not super duper slow. My vibrato range is sort of medium-ish to fast. I would kind of say my slowest vibrato is like a slow medium. I don't go all the way down to slow because that's just not my range. Like, we've been talking about, choosing what your own musicality is and having a decision. So, in terms of what your sound is, my vibrato range is kind of in the middle. I'm not super fast and I'm not super slow. I'm sort of all the mediums. So some people have a super duper slow vibrato, and that's natural to their hand. That's what feels good to them. That's the sound that they like. And some people have a super duper fast, really, kind of vibrato. And, that's kind of popular in classical music as well, to have that really fast vibrato. And that's awesome too. That's really cool and sounds really good in certain situations. And, it's very similar to vocal vibrato as well. There's like some control over it and some it's just your natural thing, So there's going to be certain vibrato speeds that are natural to your hands. So I would just see what feels good to you and go with that. And you might be kind of on the slow medium. You might be a medium like me, or you might be a medium fast. You never know, but it's good to have a range. So it's good to practice the whole range in the beginning, from really slow to really fast. And then it will become apparent to you, like what your speed is. So all of that, you want to take a tune at the end of the day, like, the one I was playing, or another slow tune, and just practice your vibrato in the tune and just play the tune really, really slow and work out that, vibrato, those first shakes of vibrato, where they go. It'll be painful at first, I promise. It's not going to feel good. You're kind of going to be going, ugh, why am I doing this? But I promise, if you put some elbow grease into that for, a little bit of time, then it's going to come out, it's going to start sounding really beautiful. Vibrato is one of those things that is like really, really difficult until one day you wake up and you just kind of have it. Not all the way have it, but it's one of those things that clicks in one day. And I cannot tell you when that's going to be. I mean, some people it clicks in faster without them putting like too much effort into it, and some people practice and practice and practice for many years and it's still a struggle. So I can't tell you when the light at the end of the tunnel is going to come, but I will tell you that you do get control over it slowly over time. You will feel yourself gaining control over it every time you practice, even if it's feeling a little like all over the place and out of control. But you are very brave to be doing it at all. It's one of these things that is, heavily focused on in classical music, and in fiddle music, we don't really focus on it so much. I mean, people kind of learn it at one point, but a lot of people will learn their one vibrato and, their one vibrato at their one speed, and they'll sort of stick with that forever. But I think it's really good to have a whole spectrum of choices of speeds that you can take your vibrato at, so that you can really use it to add some beautiful expression into your tunes. So I hope that's helpful, and I welcome you to your vibrato journey. It's going to take some time, and I just invite you to be patient with yourself, and find a good quiet space where nobody can hear you, and just go for it and see what happens. And I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was helpful, and I will see you next time.